We mourn those who pass away because we know we will never hear their voice again. We grieve because we know we will never be able to tell them how we feel. But the reverse is not always true. Events have been documented of those who have passed on communicating with the living, and those messages are not always positive. Here are 10 scary messages sent from the great beyond. Number 10 is automatic writing. Some of the scariest alleged messages from the dead have been recorded through what's known as automatic writing. This technique involves a psychic randomly drawing with a pencil until a spirit channels through their body. The unearthly entity then begins to write down the message. Marguerite Dupont-Lee was one of the most famous practitioners of automatic writing in the 1900s and had a number of eerie encounters. In one of the most chilling spirit messages of Marguerite's career, she claimed that her friend, Minister Kemper Bacach, who died in 1904, instructed her to take up photography for some reason. When she took his advice and started to photograph herself and her surroundings, the photographs revealed a ghostly figure sitting in a chair near her, watching her from beyond the grave. Number 9 are emails from the dead. We all use email regularly, but what if we clicked on our inbox one day and saw a message from someone that we knew was dead? That's exactly what happened to the loved ones of Jack Fruza. Jack had passed away suddenly at the age of 32, causing tremendous shock to his loved ones. This happened in June of 2011. Just a few months later, his cousin Jimmy McGraw and his friend Tim Hart both reported that they had received emails from Jack after he died. While those emails provided Jack's loved ones with solace that he was still around somewhere, it's difficult not to feel a chill on the back of your neck when you read what some of his messages contain. One of the subject headings, for example, was "I'm watching." And in one of Jack's last messages, he was quoted as writing, "Did you hear me? I'm at your house." Number 8 is Klaus Schribers' image. The spirits of the dead have reportedly left more than just written messages. In some instances, they've allegedly imprinted their images onto video. A man by the name of Klaus Schreiber claimed that after receiving a message from his dead daughter on how to communicate with the spirits of the dead using video, that he was able to reliably reproduce images of people who had passed away. This involved hooking up a video camera to a television screen and then filming that resulting image on said camera. This created a strange infinite loop of eerie warped lights. Schreiber then claimed that he found images of the dead inside of those lights. Before Schreiber himself passed away, some say that he communicated that he'd survived death. This is because when others used Schreiber's technique, his expressionless face came peering out of the static. Number 7 are phone calls from beyond. Many people claim that they have received phone calls from people that they know have passed on. In one such case, author Dean Koontz received a mysterious phone call from a voice that sounded very much like that of his dead mother. The voice simply repeated, "Please be careful." The voice then faded away to nothing but static. When the phone fell silent, Koontz persuaded himself that he had simply just imagined that it was the voice of his mother. Just 2 days later, when visiting his alcoholic father, his dad attacked him with a knife. Taking the knife off of his father, the police arrived and nearly shot Koontz for carrying the weapon. It was the message from his mother that made him act quickly and drop the knife. And indeed, he did have to be careful. Number 6 is interference. Investigating instances where individuals claim to have been contacted by the dead using technology, Dr. Imants Barus from the University of Western Ontario began an experiment which some believe succeeded in contacting the dead. Recording the static between radio stations, the experiment provided some weak evidence for communication. However, a follow-up experiment using a computer program which randomly switched between the words yes and no had more success. Asking a number of yes or no questions, the computer program seemed to be guided by an unknown force to answer many of the questions correctly beyond statistical chance. Expanding this to a device which generated random words, strange messages were then recorded, including creepy references to cryptic figures of light. Number 5 is the Philip experiment. One of the most bizarre messages from the spirit world was allegedly during the Philip experiment of 1972. Conducted in Toronto, this experiment tested a theory that imagination can create sentient entities. The experiment involved creating a fictional historical character and then attempting to communicate with that character via a seance. The name agreed upon was Philip Aylesford. When the seance commenced, they began to receive answers from this fictional creation. While some argue that the experiment was a hoax, others claim that it was another spirit claiming to be Philip. But what is certain is that when one of the experimenters told the ghost that they had created it, the messages from Philip ceased. If true, it brings into question just what terrors that the human imagination can bring into existence. Number 4 is a time capsule. It used to be common for children to bury messages under the ground in boxes, known as time capsules, for people to discover decades later. One such box was found in Albuquerque, near a former elementary school. It was dated to 1968 and contained letters from a school class that year. The children had wrote about their school, their lives, and even their favorite TV shows. But one message stood out. A rolled up piece of paper which read, and I quote, "I am dead, I go to Montgomery School. That is the oldest school name. I was born in 1900. The message goes on to say that the writer of the note enjoys spooking the police, ending with, "See you later, savages." Of course, it could be that the note was a joke from one of the children in the class. However, some argue that its strange wording has an unearthly quality. Number 3 is ghostwriting. Terrifying messages from the dead have been scratched into the walls of haunted locations. This reportedly occurred at the Borley Rectory, often known as the most haunted house in England. During paranormal investigations of this haunted house, messages from either spirits of the dead or demonic entities reportedly appeared scrawled onto the walls. This included the name of a young woman who lived in the house, Mary Ann, which was often written on the walls by an unseen hand. Eventually, messages were found such as, "Mary Ann, please get help." The messages then asked witnesses to hold a mass and to pray. Mary Ann had no idea what this alleged ghost wanted with her, or how she could have helped, but when asked what it wanted, the entity simply wrote one word: rest. Number 2 is the Witch Elm writing. One of the deepest alleged messages from beyond the grave began to appear after the discovery of a woman's skeletal remains in 1943. The body was discovered inside a wych elm tree in the woods just outside of Hagley Hall in England. The woman's body had been there for at least 2 years and had been suffocated. Shortly afterwards, a bizarre piece of graffiti appeared on a nearby wall. It read, "Who put Bella in the wych elm?" The same piece of graffiti had appeared sporadically around where the woman's body was first discovered, and has continued to be written for decades. No one knows if the woman's name was really Bella, and no one knows the origin of the writing. But some have hypothesized that the question is a cryptic message from the dead themselves, one which may eventually point to her murderer. And number 1 is Jane Goldman Investigates. Jane Goldman is a successful Hollywood screenwriter, but she also had a short-lived television series in the early 2000s which investigated paranormal phenomena. In one of the episodes of the show, Jane received a chilling message. The episode was about electronic voice phenomena, the theory that voices from the dead can be recorded through microphones.
What is that? That's a body. That's a body.
At one point in the episode, Jane interviewed an EVP expert who claimed that she'd recorded a message from the dead, which told her that someone close to her was going to die. The voice said that person's name, followed by the words, "It's their time." Jane joked that it would be frightening to record an EVP which told her of her death, and at the end of the episode, that is exactly what happened. Jane captured an EVP of her own, which simply said, "It's your time."